Shall we start? Good evening, distinguished guests, distinguished panelists. So welcome to the Egypt Investment Summit at the AFSEC. I'm honored and happy to be moderating this session today. My name is Mohamed Moharram. I have more than 22 years of experience in the healthcare and finance sector between Egypt and the United Kingdom. I worked for the World Bank, Putnam Investment, Newscape Capital Group, Arch Financials, before moving and co-managing our family business, Egypt's largest healthcare diagnostic platform in Egypt. And I'm currently an advisory board member to Elevate Capital, Africa's largest healthcare fund. I'm also a graduate from the American University in Cairo and the London School of Economics and Political Science. At the intersection of Africa, the Middle East, and Europe, Egypt, with more than 110 million population, is a huge market for investors from all over the world who are looking for a young, affordable, and educated workforce. Since 2014, the government of Egypt has invested in infrastructure, electricity generation, oil and gas projects, and renewable energy. The government of Egypt is undergoing a massive modernization of roads, ports, and railroad projects. We all know that the world is not the same anymore since COVID and the Russian-Ukrainian war. But once the dust settles, we all believe that Egypt will be ready to be a hub for investments and investors from all over the world. I would like, first of all, to welcome to the stage for a short keynote speech, Mr. Hossam Heiba, the President of the General Authority for Investment and Free Zone, for a presentation on Egypt investment landscape. Please welcome Mr. Hossam.
Good afternoon, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here in this very important event to present to you what Egypt has been doing and opting to do for the near and medium-term future. As Mohammed has indicated, there is a massive development that's happening in Egypt, started back in 2014, where the Egyptian state moved towards developing its investment environment and climate to attract both private sector and foreign direct investments to the country, to foster its economic growth for the purpose of developing jobs, opportunities, as well as improving the quality of life for the Egyptians. Allow me to present to you some of the basic indicators of the economy and our near future plan for investments. Egypt actually enjoys some of the privileges that it has. It has, first of all, its location. The Egypt location is in the intersection between the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. Egypt lies, it's the only African country that has two legs, one in Africa and one in Asia. So we enjoy proximity to markets. We have a diversified economy where we have energy-based activities, we have industrial-based in several activities, we have agricultural base as well as logistics activities given the location, and we do have a good base for information and communication technologies that has long-standing footprint either in the regional or in the global markets. We also enjoy large pool of labor force. The Egypt labor force is around 23 million Egyptians. 60% of it are below the age of 30. So it's a young workforce. They're multilingual and they have very competitive labor cost. Also, we have, over the past 7 years, we have developed competitive incentive schemes, either on the tax or in investment levels. The average annual growth rate of our real GDP over the past 5 years was around 4.9%. And even during the COVID period, we experienced around 2.5% of growth rate, unlike most of the countries in the globe that experienced negative growth rates during this year. We also considered to be one of the large GDPs in the region. We're the second largest in the Middle East region and the second largest in the Africa continent. Our GDP approached 10 trillion Egyptian pounds for the last fiscal year, and we are opting to achieve around 5.7% as an average growth rate for our GDP for the coming 2 years. Our foreign direct investments witnessed the highest in Africa and the Middle East, where we reached $8.9 billion as net FDIs. The capital inflows of last year, 2022, reached $22 billion coming from different parts of the world. We also witnessed $13 billion of capital outflow during 2022. So the net is 8.9. 2023, which ends, our fiscal year ends in the 30th of June every year. We just closed it, and it showed almost 1%, $10.1 billion, which shows an increase of last year of around 12% in our net FDIs flowing into the country. This shows the attractiveness of the market in spite of the turbulences happening worldwide, especially on the FDI side, which globally showed a negative growth rate of 15%. So Egypt was one of the countries that managed to overcome such downfall in the FDIs and due to the attractiveness of its market. Our private consumption percentage to the GDP is almost 82.5%, which shows the strength of this market in this regard. Egypt is considered to be one of the largest oil producers for non-OPEC countries and the second largest producer of natural gas in Africa last year, 2022. And our liquefied gas has been increasing over the years. We consider Egypt competitive advantages. Sorry. As I said, the labor force, and we have unemployment rate down to 7.3%, down from almost 9% during COVID period. We managed to reduce our employment rate due to the mega projects that Egypt has been undertaking during this period. As an example, we have built our infrastructure to improve our connectivity all over the country. So we are about to complete our ambitious plan to build a massive road network that reaches 30,000 kilometers in length. We have achieved almost 80% of this target, and this target should be completed by the year 2026. Our railway roads as well, we have plans to reach 11,530 kilometers of railway network, new network. We have achieved almost 10,000 kilometers, and we have almost 2,000 kilometers to go until 2030 target. We have 27 domestic and international airports, and we received in 2022 around 38 million passengers in these airports. This calendar year, we are projecting to receive almost 48 million passengers, reaching the full capacity of our airports, thus raising massive opportunities for extending the number of our airports and expanding the capacities of our airports, thus availing opportunities for investment for the private sector to come in and operate, build and operate airports in the country. We also have 18 seaports, commercial ports, spread out in the Red Sea and the Mediterranean, which gives us a privilege logistically for companies like Maersk Line and Hutchison, COSCO, MSC, Dubai ports, Abu Dhabi ports, to operate ports in Egypt on concession basis and PPP programs. Egypt enjoys renewable energy investments. Since almost 10 years, we have built the largest solar park in the world in Benban area in the south parts of the country, where we managed to supply the national grid as well as the European grid with renewable energy through solar energy. The size of investments that we have done in the infrastructure to upgrade the infrastructure and widen it so that we can attract more and more investments in different sectors. We have availed, the target for us is to reach 390, almost 90 billion Egyptian pounds investments in transportation alone. And out of which almost 184 billion was done by public investments. The difference, which is around 200 billion, was executed and owned by the private sector. This shows how the Egyptian government is aggressively introducing the private sector into its infrastructure and GDP growth plans. Our total cost of electricity that we have invested over the past 9 years, almost reaching 2 trillion Egyptian pounds, contributing to an additional 26 gigawatts to the grid, with availed excess capacity of around 6 gigawatts to be exported to the European Union and the Gulf states, as well as the African continent grid. We have been also investing heavily in our drinkable water, and we have reached now almost 100% of our water network to be drinkable water all over the country. The investment that we have done in the transportation sector has been working very well and realized a good source of job creations. Currently, this sector employs almost 800,000 people in the sector, and it is actually growing during the course of time. We have been, this is a very quick example of the type of projects that has been availed to the private sector, from high-speed trains to electric trains to monorails within the Greater Cairo area, as well as availing the operation and maintenance of the underground metro network of Alexandria City. I don't want to spend much time on that, but this also shows projects in transportation and logistics, where we have projects availed to in ports, in managing ports, as well as in managing railway lines, with specific projects with estimated investment costs ranging from $200 to $800 million in various sectors. And we're also looking forward to operate in different ports like Alexandria Port, Seaport, Red Sea Seaport, and Damietta Seaports. We also avail opportunities in the river transportation and the River Nile through building and operating river ports in various areas. Lastly, I want to cover one of our mega projects, which is considered to be the largest industrial park in the world. It is the Suez Canal Economic Zone. This zone covers from the Suez City, the entry point of Suez Canal, up north till Port Said, the end point of the Suez Canal to the Mediterranean Sea. This economic zone is characterized by various industries. It has 6 main ports lies under this zone. It has 4 industrial zones. It has 400 operational companies inside the zone, mega projects mainly. We have 5 main port operators, international port operators, 14 industrial developers operating in the 4 industrial zones. And inside our ports, we have almost 100 establishments in the 6 ports. It is around 455 kilometers square, and we have more than 100,000 jobs created in this area. The zone actually witnesses almost 26,000 ships crossing the Suez Canal, where we feed these ships with all services and the fuel needed, as well as we carry in the Suez Canal almost 12% of the international trade, of which 10% is seaborne trade through the Suez Canal. We have various incentives in this area where we have full foreign ownership in this area. Land ownership can be done. Labor flexibility, conflict resolution centers, capital reimbursement. We also have for financial investments, tax and investment incentives, financial supports, and custom relaxed and easy custom regime. We also have the one-stop shop inside this zone, where we handle all the investor services inside one office inside the zone, and we also have available labor with developed infrastructure in the zone. We have the zone is well equipped in terms of infrastructure. We have natural gas. We have communication with fiber optical cables. We have water supply with 2 desalination plants and 3 water lift plants and storage, sewage treatment plants, and power generation through 7 substations and 13 power distributors within the zone. This concludes my presentation, and we just wanted to share with you a couple of our potential sectors, like the transportation and the Suez Canal that lies under the Suez Canal. We have green energy, we have steel fabrication companies, we have agriculture products, ceramics, we have agricultural land as well, food industry, fiber manufacturing capabilities, and feeding industries for automobile industry, as well as wind farms under this zone. Thank you for the time given to me, and I hope the event will be beneficial for you all. Thank you very much.
We would like to thank Mr. Heiba for giving us a bit of his time today and for this very interesting presentation. I would like to first welcome the panelists.
استاذ سامح فريد دكتور سامح فريد ازاي طب تعالي
You want to scoot over?
To start our discussion today, I would like each panelist to briefly introduce themselves to the general audience and highlight their experience in the Egyptian investment landscape. Maybe we can start with Mr. Sherif Abdelaal from Kamco Investment.
Thank you. Hi all. I'm Sherif Abdelaal with the experience of around 24 years in the financial field. Started with the corporate banking, then private equity, then investment banking. I'm currently heading the regional practice for the mergers and acquisitions in Kamco Invest. We work over the region based at Cairo, Egypt, and we have offices in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. Thank you.
And then moving to Mr. Mahmoud from Moharram Partners.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Pleasure to be here on the panel. I'm Mahmoud Hatem. I'm the Vice President for Moharram and Partners for Middle East and Africa. We're basically a consultancy firm. We're specialized in public policy and B2G. We're currently operating in more than 25 countries around the world. So we're covering North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, GCC, India, and Pakistan. We have a very strong portfolio when it comes to tech. So our clients are Google, Microsoft, Amazon, AWS, Meta. And in payment, we've got Visa and MasterCard. So, and in pharma, we've got like Pfizer, GSK, Hikma, Johnson & Johnson, and Moderna. We're specialized in policies and regulations. And I'm very happy to be here on the Egyptian Investment Summit. Thank you.
Abdelaziz.
Hi, everyone. I'm Abdelaziz Abdelnabi. I co-founded an investment firm called Catalyst Partners. Historically, I did, and I also founded recently a fintech, very recent. I mean, in my early years, I did 5 companies, did 2 exits, worked in investment banking, private equity across the MENA region. And I'm happy to be on the panel today with you guys. Thank you.
Mr. Sobhy.
Thank you. Ahmed Sobhy. I'm the Chief Investment Officer of Banque Misr. It's the second largest bank in Egypt, and we have a portfolio of private equity investments and direct investments of around $3 billion. And we also do real estate, public markets, as well as private debt. And so before that, I used to spend my time doing private equity and investment banking internationally, and then I came back to Egypt in 2016.
We should have started with Rana, but ladies first. But
last but not least.
I was going to say, you forgot to mention that you also do venture capital funds.
Yeah, of course.
So, Banque Misr is a lead investor at Nclude. I'm a senior principal at Nclude. We're a fintech-focused fund that invests primarily in Egypt, but with the ability to invest in businesses outside of Egypt that are looking to expand into Egypt. Previous to that, I had 15 years of experience in private equity, focused primarily on the Egyptian market, East Africa, and North Africa as well.
I can officially tell you we have the brightest brains and youth of Egypt here today on this panel. And I would like to start my questions today and addressing it to Mr. Ahmed Sobhy, the CIO of Banque Misr. Banque Misr is the second largest bank in Egypt. And I met with Mr. Sobhy yesterday, and we were having a discussion about the macroeconomic conditions in Egypt and the investment opportunities. And I was telling him that there are a lot of opportunities.
الآن الموضوع رايح فين؟
ليه؟
الآن هتقول إيه؟
he was telling me the investors should invest in Egypt now and not wait for any further economic reforms to happen. So I would like to start by listening to why now immediately investors should come to Egypt. You can go ahead.
Sure. To be transparent, I think that if you look at Egypt and you look at its history, this isn't the first time we've had difficult economic conditions in Egypt. And every time people who have taken the view that this is a country that's around for the long term, a country that if you take a long-term view with it, you will make a significant amount of money that is definitely above the cost of capital of any investor, I think you would definitely make money in Egypt. And the point around reforms, to be really honest, I think the Egyptian government has been undergoing a reform process, I would say, for the past maybe even 20 years, let alone the past 5 or 7, where there's been heavy investment in infrastructure. And more pertinently, if you're an investor that looks at IRRs and how you can generate IRRs, today you're coming in where the risk premia that are being applied to any asset you're looking at is extremely high, right? There's blood in the water. Everybody's very worried about Egypt. I'm going to apply a very high risk premia to that transaction, which means you get it at a price that if risk premia adjusts over time, which they have historically, you will have ended up making a significant amount of money and a great investment. And I think that's fundamentally the reason I said that, is that today, the first, there's a privatization program that's going on by the government. There are 32 companies on it. We have 6 of them, I would say, that are on that list. I would say the first guys in the door that will do a transaction, like the transactions you see that have already been announced, they probably will get the best prices. And then as the risk premium comes down, you'll see prices of all of these assets go up, and the last guy who waits for everything to be fine will definitely pay a higher price than everybody else. And so that's why I say it's a much better, if you have a view that this country will be around, and to be honest, my view is really built on the ingenuity and talent of the Egyptian people. And I think they've shown that through incredible cycles, through many years, and they've been able to come up with a very diversified economy. So today, yes, it was great to be in infrastructure for the past 5 years, maybe for another couple of years. For the last 3, it's been great to be in tourism. It's been great to be in manufacturing. And so you have a very diversified economy, and if you pick the right sectors, you'll be able to make a significant amount of money in Egypt.
Moving to my next question, I would like to ask Mr. Hatem from Moharram and Partners about the government incentives and policies aimed at attracting and encouraging FDIs in Egypt, especially in the ICT and technology sectors in Egypt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moharram, for giving me the floor. Well, actually, I can see here that all the audience are interested about whether or not to invest in Egypt, and the answer is definitely yes. Actually, I have a lot to say. So basically, we have the investment law, which was launched in 2017. And basically, it depends on 4 main pillars. The streamlined procedures, which reduced all the bureaucratic hurdles, and also the tax incentives that the government gave to investors in terms of tax exemptions, reduction and stability guarantees to encourage long-term investment. Also, the investor protection that the government gave to investors against the nationalization and unfair treatment, and the dispute resolution. That now there are like specialized investment courts that provide a mechanism for resolving investment-related disputes. And also, frankly speaking, we cannot ignore the special economic zones that were made during the last few years. So, for example, now we have the Suez Canal Economic Zone, we have the administrative capital, and we have the Golden Triangle Economic Zone. So these zones, they offer strategic geographic location, access to markets for crossover sector, and due to our position, like the gateway to Africa, all these things definitely encourage investment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving to Mr. Abdelaal from Kamco Investment, can you, with your vast experience in the private equity sector in Egypt and in the Middle East, can you tell us more about how is the sector going on in Egypt at the moment, sectors that are attracting attention, possible exits available for investors? How do you see the market given the current economic conditions?
Sure, that's a broadband one.
Yes.
Okay. Regarding the private equity activities, it's of course after the what happened in the war of Ukraine and the COVID and having hiking interest rates, of course the private equities faced a bit of slowdown. However, I think it started to recover again, because it's preparing the platform and preparing consolidated opportunities for the strategics for the upcoming, let's say, medium term of 3 to 5, 7 years. So they started their activity now, and they are overlooking Egypt on a focused scope, and a lot of them opened Arab offices in Egypt within the last 2 years. You can say like 5 new private equities entered Egypt, invested and opened offices. In the same time, the cycles of raising funds is active currently. And we can see a huge activity from the side of the sovereign wealth funds of the GCC countries and private equities. They are currently investing heavily in Egypt in the good investment opportunities, because they are medium-term players. Of course, short-term players will not be happy currently. Medium-term and long-term are of a more stable side and will take a very good upside, as Mr. Sobhy mentioned. Other than that, most of the attractive sectors currently in Egypt are the related to fintech, non-banking financial institutes, healthcare, pharma, and customer-related or retail-related investments, and of course anything that are exporting their products abroad because they are generating a currency. And having said that, most of the family offices and companies in Egypt are currently benefiting from the cycle and performing extraordinarily well, because you have to compensate for the imported products. So this activates the local products and the market in Egypt to compensate for the gap created due to the lack of the currency. I don't know if there's anything missing of your question.
That's perfect. Actually, I would like to elaborate on that and listen to our serial entrepreneur, Mr. Abdelaziz Abdelnabi, and hear his opinion on the most potential for investments and sectors in Egypt that are of interest for him at the moment.
I think more we go back to basics, because the thing is, when you in situations that we are facing now, I mean, from a macro perspective, I mean, the best thing is to go definitely to basics and the infrastructure that is, as Mr. Hossam was mentioning earlier, there's an infrastructure hub that is being done in Egypt, and there's a lot of investments been done in that. So the thing is to go into the really defensive industries that actually been doing well and been focused. And I think the direction, which is, as again, Egypt has been directing recently, on the space of SMEs, which is the small and medium enterprises. Because in any emerging market, which is one of the Egyptian countries, each one of them, is basically the pillar of any economy to grow is SMEs. Having said that, the more you give incentives and actually focus on this industry in terms of, giving them the right paths, giving them the right direction, would actually enhance the business in general. So again, going back, as I said, defensive industries, we're talking about like industrial, healthcare, farming, all the things that actually, an agribusiness, which is basically, and F&B businesses. This is the sectors that I think we should all focus on.
Perfect. Now we have also a VC expert on the panel, Rana. Rana Latif is the senior principal at Nclude, Egypt's largest VC fund. And I would like to ask Rana about the VC landscape in Egypt and for her to tell the audience more about the sectors that recently attracted investment into VCs in general. You can go ahead, Rana.
Sure, thank you. Just taking a step back for a moment and looking at venture capital as a whole and sort of the journey that it's taken over the past few years. So very proud to say that, when funding was available and when investing was prevalent, Egypt was always a top performer and continues to be a top performer on the continent in terms of funding attracted and number of deals done. What we have seen is a significant slowdown, but that's seen across the board, but continue to see funding attracted to financial services, which is fintech and using technology to extend credit, to extend availability of funding to not just consumers, but also SMEs, as Abdelaziz mentioned, and also following that with e-commerce and logistics. Some of these businesses we were very proud to be a part of and be one of the investors that were leading up to these rounds of these businesses. And I think that we all will continue to see availability of funding for those successful companies and for those performative companies.
Interesting. Moving back to Mr. Haitem, can you tell us, with your experience in ICT sector in Egypt, can you tell us more about how digitization and the use of technology has helped the government services in Egypt recently, especially in the last couple of years?
Yeah, definitely. So basically, when we will talk about digitization, we should mention also the financial inclusion. So the government has been working on that for the last few years for the vision of 2030. So now the parallel economy went back to the formal economy to increase the GDP. And also we have all these e-government services like the online tax filing, the e-visa application, the easy way to do business registration. Also talking about digital infrastructure, how it affected connectivity. So the amount of connectivity enhanced in the last few years, like the FTTH fiber to the homes, that made the internet much faster. All this, it had a positive impact on foreign direct investment. Also, mobile applications like Fawri and InstaPay, the famous mobile app that was a game changer in the market, that was done by the Central Bank of Egypt. It made the life of a million of Egyptians easier. And also smart cities. So the government has embraced the concept of smart cities to enhance the quality of life of citizens and taking initiatives in Internet of Things and AI.
Perfect. Sobhy, Mr. Sobhy, regarding the Egypt divestment program and privatization program that was back on track recently with the recent announcements, can you tell us more about the program and how, but also about the role of the Sovereign Wealth Fund in Egypt in attracting investments into the country?
To be fair, I'm I'm not in the sovereign wealth fund, so I'll happily speak on their behalf. But
On behalf,
if I say things that are totally incorrect, no one record this. But no, I think that's, fundamentally, I think Egypt, it's not now. It wasn't the privatization program announcement is the big announcement, and it was in response to the war in Ukraine and the strains on the budget. But I think fundamentally there has been a shift away from government to try to privatize a lot of these enterprises. And that shift started with creating the Sovereign Wealth Fund probably in 2017-18. And that team is supposed to, first of all, help attract private capital to sectors where Egypt feels like it needs development. So today they're running a very large process for desalination. So there's a very large process that's being run for desalination. There's another one for international investors to come into green hydrogen. And the Sovereign Wealth Fund is handling that on behalf of the government of Egypt and coordinating with all of the different ministries to be able to drive that forward. In the interim, when the transactions that needed to be sold and the assets that needed to be sold were happening, they have stepped up and have helped the government with arranging the sale of those assets, particularly that a lot of them are done in bilateral negotiations with other sovereign wealth funds, particularly from the Gulf. So I think the Sovereign Wealth Fund, its main role is to attract investment in specific sectors and partner with international investors and local investors on these sectors, and they've done it in healthcare distribution, they've done it with Al-Izabi investment, they've done it on microfinance where they've co-invested with Etisalat. And I think they've done that part and they're pushing there. And on the divestments now, the structure has changed a little bit where the IFC, the government has now retained the IFC as its advisor on the entire program. And the IFC has come back, I think, with a preliminary strategy that's still being discussed. And the idea will be to roll out a lot of these companies to the market, either public markets or strategic sales very soon. But at the end of the day, I think the companies, a lot of them on that are ready to be sold. Some require some work, and that's why they're going to take a little bit more time.
Thank you, Sobhy. And the government plan to removing all red tapes and bureaucratic procedures in Egypt. We've recently heard also of the golden license, and that there are sectors that will be granted the license for a quick establishment and incorporation. So how is this helping and attracting FDIs at the moment? Can any of the panelists
Yeah, sure. Actually,
discuss this with us?
Actually, there are two types of licenses: the golden license and the silver license. And they both have a regulatory framework. The golden license was mentioned in the investment law of 72 of 2017, where it shortens the time of the company. You can do a company in only 20 days after the approval of the Council of Ministers. And basically, the focus is on the following sectors: electricity, renewable energy, transportation, industrial sector, ICT, tourism, and environment. And then we have the silver license that the GAFI is planning to issue by the end of this year, 2023. Thank you.
Perfect. Going back to Mr. Abdelaal, can you tell us some success stories of foreign companies that have recently invested in Egypt and thrived in the market given the current global conditions?
Yeah, of course. As mentioned, there is a very good, again, investment opportunities in Egypt. And we can see recently a lot of private equities and sophisticated funds have exited. The example of this, which is disclosed, is like DPI. They exited the BTEC investments for the Saudi Sovereign Investment Fund, the PIF. And we can find that private equities like local private equities and international like Zdhar and Sanad, they exited their non-banking financial institute global to a consortium of EBRD, MFEs, and SPE. And all of this was extremely and extraordinary multiples in the market with a very good exits and successful ones, and securing a very high IRR with the currency as well. So again, it's still doable, applicable. It depends on how to manage your investment, how to do your due diligence well on the investment, and to secure your path for a successful and a growth story.
And given,
Just to add to that.
I'll go, actually, I'm going just straight to you. Go ahead.
Just to add to that, we obviously, funding has been scarce and coupled with the global macro and Egypt's macro. So we at Nclude came up with an idea to bring Egyptian founders to London-based investors. We brought 18 founders from within our portfolio and outside our portfolio, and the feedback has been tremendous. There has been extremely positive feedback. Investors are very, very excited to speak to these founders and understand exactly how they're circumventing the challenges that they're faced, whether it's in their businesses or specifically towards Egypt. And that really gave us an indication that people are still very much interested in investing in Egypt, and long-term investors that have that long view on businesses and technology businesses specifically are still very much interested and can understand the down cycle that we're in and sort of look beyond that. So I just wanted to share that story because it's been an eye-opening experience for us this week at how the market here has reacted to these founders coming and the receptiveness to these Egyptian founders.
I think given the rise in interest rates in the US by the Fed, what we've been hearing not only in Egypt but across the globe, the VC sector is being affected, especially when it comes to fundraising. So elaborating on what you were saying, can you tell us more about how Nclude, when it comes to fundraising, is helping its portfolio companies? Apart from bringing them to London this weekend?
We do plenty, actually, for our portfolio companies and beyond. I think we understood very early on that it's important to support through capital, but it's also important to support through relationships. And we've been working for the past year and a half now very diligently on increasing the visibility of these Egyptian companies, whether they're within our portfolio or outside our portfolio, by reaching out to our investor network that are global investors and bringing them, inviting them into Egypt. So that's, I think, really one of the most substantial forms of value creation that we've done as a fund. And through those meetups and bringing those investors, inviting them to Egypt, having them see how the whole ecosystem operates, we successfully had co-investments with at least 3 of the large Africa-focused and globally focused funds in our portfolio companies and beyond. And I think if you really focus on what are you doing as a VC beyond investing into that company, and we are investors at the end of the day, but we're here to build companies that can exponentially grow. And how do we do that? We do that through paving the way for them as they expand and as they sort of need different types of capital. So I have to say that is one of the foremost things that we've been doing to help our companies in the fundraising process.
Perfect. Since we are running a bit out of time, I would love to touch upon some themes like sustainable, clean energy, SMEs, and in Egypt, and hear from the different panelists on their opinion on that. Maybe Abdelnabi will be better to talk about SMEs specifically.
We're very proud to say that in Egypt, we just launched last year as Catalyst Private Equity. We launched the first impact investing fund in Egypt and the Middle East. We partnered up with UNDP, and this is something we're very blessed that this is basically was that Egypt was picked to be the first country to put impact and to implement SDGs in the Middle East in Egypt. So we actually launched the fund, and we just did, we're going to announce it actually next week. We invested our first investment like 2 weeks ago, and we're actually putting in practice the Sustainable Development Goals. We're focusing as a fund on 6 SDGs, and hopefully we're going to start implementing them. In terms of a lot of people just look at it as investments, and I mean, investing as an impact, it doesn't mean that you're not looking for returns. It's actually you have to look at sustainable returns. And one of them is actually the foremost or the front on it is basically to look at the returns and high ones. So the business grows and sustainable actually can give back to the whole ecosystem at large. And this is something, a key that we've been focusing on, and hopefully we roll it over throughout the Middle East and North Africa, with the support of UNDP. So, thank you.
Mr. Sobhy,
No, I think-
renewable and clean energy.
Yeah, no, I think that ESG is now, we don't have to talk about it anymore because it's embedded in everything. So even as a bank where we have our SDG goals that we're focused on, we have a very clear reporting process that we have to do. It's going to be part of IFRS. I mean, we have ESG due diligence that we do on any project, and they have to have an environmental and social action plan to improve their standards. And so, it's now a basic staple, and I think it will become even more so for any funding that you're going to get. So whether it's funding even from commercial banks that we get as a bank, it's now tied to ESG goals and ESG targets and making sure your reporting is on schedule. So I think it's very much there, and we have it as part of our investment process and as part of our lending process embedded. We have a big team of environmental engineers and things like that look at every project and can report on the progress that's made.
And actually adding on that, sorry to say that, after the COP27 that was actually held in Egypt, a lot of initiatives just came out of it. And we're very proud as being part of this initiative and being one of the first funds in the Middle East that a lot of, as Sobhy was mentioning, a lot of banks, global banks and regional banks and insurance companies and family offices, they believe in this because it's basically, as he mentioned, it's not a luxury anymore. We believe that actually this is the right thing, of the right investments going forward, is to do it in a way of that you give back to the whole economy. Thank you.
And moreover, it's extremely important aspect for all of the transactions, because this is integral part of the due diligence on any level at any merger or acquisition. The ESG is extremely important, and if it is not properly done or covered, it might break the transaction itself.
Perfect. The government has also invested heavily in LNG and oil and gas project in the last 10 years. Mr. Heitem, can you elaborate how is this helping Egypt growing its exports in oil and gas, and how is this helping with the current conditions?
Actually, I will cover this question in a different way. So working in a consultancy firm specialized in public policy and B2G and covering Middle East and Africa, and being specialized in PPP, in the public-private partnership, till now crossover sector, we still get a lot of requests for clients and investors interested in Egypt. And I can see that. And this is because of the large population and all these incentives that the government is giving. So definitely we're on the right track.
Perfect. Mr. Hossam.
I think.
I just want to do a couple of comments before I leave, because I have a complaint to catch actually. One thing about the economic indicators, surprisingly, although we have been witnessing a sort of a foreign exchange crunch in our cash flow, but the other economic indicators are improving very well in terms of growth rates, in terms of balance of payment indicators, in terms of trade balance even with several countries. Also, our exports has been increasing in the past 3 years with an average of 15% growth rates. So all of these indicators, and also our dollar revenue actually is improving in terms of revenues from tourism, from Suez Canal, So all of these indicators are actually improving. The only challenge that we're really facing is the bridging the financing gap due to, as you mentioned, the high interest rates in the U.S. markets, which actually siphoned the global markets from the dollar at the end of the day. So which shows this is short-term challenge that we're facing, and the government is actually working very diligently to overcome this within the coming couple of quarters. The second thing that I wanted to just highlight, Egypt has been working diligently in attracting VC funds and improving its ecosystem for entrepreneurships and startups. And we've recently created, under the government and under the Prime Minister office, a unit to monitor and supervise the ecosystem of the startups, and headed by GAFI, by myself actually. And we're working on building a digital platform whereby any entrepreneur who wants to operate in Egypt, be it local or foreign, he can simply access this platform, and he gets all the information ranging from legislations, sandboxes, access to finance, and any other requirement that he needs from the government. And we will act as the one-stop shop for the startup. And the server license that you have mentioned will be mainly directed to startups. And finally, we have developed 4 startups offshoring, where you can incorporate your company under the free zone jurisdiction, and you can enjoy all the privileges under the free zone, where you have 0 taxes, 0 customs, and you can operate under any chosen governing law for your shareholder agreement, as well as dealing with foreign currencies under this jurisdiction. So all of this was made to encourage and help startups and entrepreneurs to operate out of Egypt, with a focus of Africa, of course. And we're currently working with countries like Mauritius to direct some of the funds that is being incorporated in Mauritius to be invested in Egypt. So I just wanted to highlight these things, and thank you for the invitation. And
thank you, Mr. Hossam, for his time today. Very interesting conversation going on today, and I would like to thank Mr. Hossam that despite his busy schedule in London, he managed to be here today with us. And moving back to our panelists, I would love to hear some final words from everyone on how they see things moving on, given the current regional, global conditions at the moment within their sectors.
Do you want to see if there are any audience questions?
We'll open it later on. We'd love to hear first.
Want me to start?
Run.
Okay. Going back to, I guess, all of our initial views, which as venture capitalists, as private equity, as bankers, everything, a little bit of everything, we do hold a long-term view, and we do look for businesses that can grow, and not on a linear basis, but on an exponential basis through the use of technology. I think over the past year and a half, we've all advised our businesses to curb that growth and focus more on achieving profitability. But looking now at sort of where these companies have come and the efficiencies that they've achieved and where they are in the fundraising process, we're now starting to talk again about, now let's reshift our focus to that profitability, not just to profitability, but also to how you can achieve growth, and preparing these companies as they come into the market in 2024 for another round of fundraising. I have to say that I am, and we all are at Nclude, cautiously optimistic. We do think that there is going to be an opportunity for these performative companies to succeed in fundraising, and we're there to support them along the way.
Mr. Sobhy.
Honestly, I think that having Rana, having a lot of the people in this room, and a lot of the entrepreneurs that have been around this conference, and everybody, it tells you that about the quality of businesses and the quality of people that you have in Egypt. So each one of these entrepreneurs hires a lot of people and has to run their businesses, and so I worry about this cloud. We have a macro cloud that's there, and it's the idea that it's very problematic, and I agree it is problematic for sure, but is it problematic in a fundamental way where you shouldn't be investing, you shouldn't be putting money to work, and you shouldn't look to the long term? And I think that's the difference is, my view is the Egyptian people and the Egyptian entrepreneurs always figure out a way, and they have for 50 or 60 years, with devaluations that have been worse than this, with macro conditions that have been a lot worse than this in the 1980s. And so in my mind, if you think about investing in Egypt, it's a sure thing as long as you don't take a very short-term view, and you pick the right partners and you pick the right people to work with in the country. I think it's a great place to invest.
Perfect. Abdelaziz.
I think the thing is, definitely it's even from a macro perspective, not only in Egypt, but I think the whole situation globally now, what we're seeing across the globe, things are slowing down. Things are not performing as it should be. But I mean, if you look at from the economics of Egypt and the geography and actually the position in the population and the age group, so you have a young country that still have a huge potential of growth. So it needs, I think what is needed now is more of a patient capital rather than anything else. And we should look at, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you look at in any economy, the infrastructure is a key. And we believe that's been, as a government perspective, it's been doing a lot on this perspective. Definitely needs a little bit of shifting towards now the private sector, having said the privatization, the things of including the private sector, all these things. It should come along in the right direction, and it all should make sense. Definitely not on the short term, because when you do, things, it's more on the medium and the long term. So as I said, it needs some patient capital. Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mahmoud.
Yeah, so actually, Egypt was definitely on the right track. The government wanted to have the best infrastructure possible, to have bigger ports, better roads, and better airports. But the thing is, when you have a plan and you're putting a vision and you're working on it, and then some force majeure happened like COVID, and then followed by the Russian-Ukrainian war, sometimes there is a twist in the story. I think that the government nowadays, they're working on these kind of reforms, like the fiscal consolidation, the subsidiary reforms, the currency devaluation, and they're trying to enhance the government and transparency. I hope it will work. Honestly, I'm quite optimistic, because as all of our audience know, Egypt was born and then the civilization came after. So things gonna be on the right track. Thank you.
Mr. Abdelaal.
I think that on the short term, it's the problem of the currency squeeze, which should be resolved within a couple of quarters, as Mr. Hossam mentioned previously. And on the medium and long term, it will keep extremely positive for investors and investments. So that's the case historically. So no worries at all.
Finally, I would like to open the floor for the audience if they have any questions. If they have any questions for our panelists today. Any questions?
I think everybody started end of day.
Perfect. No questions?
Anybody would like to add anything?
طب that's good that we had everything covered.
Yeah, yeah.
And we thank everyone for today, and we would love to see you around, hopefully in Cairo next time. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.